Are we live? It seems that we are live. All right. Amazing. Thank you, everybody, for joining in. So, this is officially the first slightly technical live. Greetings from Germany. All right. Papeleria San Ignazio e Ignazio. I had some Italian guys from, obviously, from Italy. They were like Ignazio, so it needs to be Ignazio. All right. I guess you're not. I guess sound is weak. Sound is weak. Let me check that out. So the microphone is weak. Okay, the level. Space Wolf. Good afternoon, John. A bit louder. All right, just give me a second and I'll give you louder. It's the first time I'm setting this up, so it needs to be corrected, obviously. So let's take a look at that. All right. What about now? Is it better? So just let me know down in the comments. Adam Stencil. What's up, Adam? Thanks for joining in. Mr. MUK, a bit louder. Yeah, all right. So I'm reading the comments. I'm trying to figure this out. All right, is better? You want it even more louder? Because it can be even louder. I just don't want to clip out. All right. Let's get a bit louder. Like this? Let me test. I guess it should be okay. Maybe I can go a little bit more. Like this. Let's check it out. All right. So, guys, thank you for joining in. And I have to figure this thing out because I have a lot of screens in front of me, because what I figured out I should do is start doing lives on a regular basis. And I had to set up the whole thing with screen sharing, whatever, guitar signal coming through everything. So I set up everything and we're going to have a lot of fun now, because I don't even know what we're going to talk about. So I'm here actually to answer questions and talk shit about absolutely everything, because to be perfectly honest, I don't care about what I'm going to say here. And I'm going to start this out with saying thank you to John and Joe, since they took my virginity. I mean, they took my virginity as if a guy who went on a podcast for the first time was not the thing that you thought, but the podcast was great and it was quite natural for me because I can talk nonstop. All right. And so doing the whole thing was really interesting for me. Thank you, guys. You can go over and check out this Hello Sailor podcast. And honestly, I don't even know why I'm wearing these headphones, because it kind of feels weird. If you hear me right, it kind of feels weird to listen to myself, like 2 times. There's a slight delay. So in any case, Hello Sailor podcast was really interesting because, to be fucking honest, I like to talk to people that are interested in the things that I'm also interested in, because most of the time I actually do these things. So pedals, guitars, amplifiers, and that kind of stuff. So what are we going to talk about today? Well, first things first. So I got my so I got my course almost ready to go, and the course is about this, and I'm not going to be talking about the course this entire live. So this is a Big Muff pedal, and it's not any kind of Big Muff pedal. It is my second Big Muff pedal that I made a long time ago, so like over 10 years. And I took it because I gifted it to a friend and I took it off from him. And this is the first time I plugged it in after a long time. It doesn't sound that bad, but it sort of represents my beginnings as a DIY pedal builder and as someone who, basically wanted to build pedals. Now, a typical question that I would get is, like, how did you start building pedals? Why did you start building pedals? And I always tell people that I started building pedals because I had no money. And it's not like I was broke, I didn't have, and I was fine. But I wanted to have a lot of guitar gear that was sort of unreachable for me at the time, because obviously I was a student at the time and I just didn't have a lot of money. So I started building pedals. Why did I do that? Well, because it was cheaper. I could get a lot of great sounding stuff for not a lot of money. So for the price of one pedal at the time, I could build 4 to 5 of them. And I started doing that. And in the end, it became something. In the end, it became this: me being live on the internet, alone in my room, talking to myself, basically, and looking at what you're writing down in those comments. But yeah, it was a journey. And I think that building pedals is possibly the best hobby that you could possibly have in your life, in the world, because it is ridiculously amazing. So I decided to make a course on DIY pedal building, which is the whole idea behind the Slightly Technical Academy. And it's quite interesting because I started the whole thing approximately 4 months ago, maybe 5 months ago. And it has been quite a ride. This whole besides playing bass, that's right. Yeah, so definitely. Okay, I'm gonna try and not be so harsh on bass players, even though I do love them. Now, in any case, I was talking about the Slightly Technical Academy, how it started out. I had the idea a long time ago, and we started it. I think the first version of the website was live sometime in January, and then you have to do the whole YouTube thing. You have to do the entire marketing thing. It's a pain in the ass doing all these things, and I pretty much do it by myself. There is one person included on the project, a developer who is working on the website, and he's amazing, but it's all me. And I made this course, which I'm trying to truncate, but I think it's going to be over 12 hours long. It is ridiculous. It's only about building the big muff. So this time it is the big muff, but the general idea is that I'm going to do a bunch of highly in detailed courses about DIY pedal building, DIY amplifiers, audio engineering, and that kind of stuff, which is adapted for guitar players, basically. So we've got a comment that I want to take out. So, Crna Metla, brat moj, what is the best guitar under 80 euros? Well, there is no guitar under 80 euros that plays. So, Mr. MUK, or can I call you Mr. Muck? You can go and check it out on the Academy, but it is a thing that I'm starting to upload it slowly because I'm finished. There are a lot of things to finish off. I'm always done with recording the entire thing, but then I'm, doing the editing, and I'm also preparing some bonus content that is going to be uploaded later on. And the next thing for the website is actually going to be implementing some kind of interaction between the students and me, which will be implemented in the next few months, so I can get feedback from people, and then I can actually correct some of the lessons when I see that some people didn't understand something well. So it is going to be a live thing. Thanks, Nicola. Yeah, this is the shirt that I'm supposed to be wearing when I'm doing rants, which I may do during this live. But in any case, now I'm talking about nice things like the beautiful Slightly Technical Academy, where we are supposed to be learning stuff and actually having a lot of fun. So I think that I honestly think that DIY will get some kind of a resurgence in the near future. And this is not me being all doomy about the industry and that kind of stuff, because I'm not doomy about the industry. I mean, come on. Sometimes I shit on stuff in my videos, which is okay, I guess. Some people get offended, but clearly the industry is moving in a weird way, as are many other industries. So it's, if you look at the global picture, we are talking about a lot of things happening on the entire scene on the planet, and the music industry and the guitar gear industry in general, audio gear industry, is also moving in pretty much in the same direction. And so I'm just gonna finish. I have something to say on that topic because I watched some videos and there was something new that I kind of learned, and but I'm gonna finish up about the course just so I don't jump from topic to topic. It's a thing that I need to learn in life. In any case, the Big Muff Pie is going to be the first course. It will be extremely in-depth, and it's sort of going to be ridiculous, where I don't only teach the Big Muff Pie, I just use it as a vessel to teach audio electronics, just a familiar circuit, which is explored in depth, and all the architecture, like everything that you have in that pedal. It's a very good platform to explain everything about BJTs, for example. And that's what I want to do through like legendary circuits. I think it's going to be amazing. And I think that DIY is going to get a resurgence because, you know, people are going to start building something. I think people are going to need hobbies in the future. And I think it's going to be absolutely ridiculously amazing what is going to happen in the DIY world, because it feels like, you know, everything functions like some kind of weird sine wave. Sometimes it goes up, sometimes it goes down. Like the market. If you look at the market, if you look at those weird curves over there, you know, sometimes it grows, it's a bull run, sometimes it's a bear run, and it's just the nature of it. And that's how I feel about the entire industry thing, because we've seen all these ridiculous things happen in the last, let's just say 10, 15 years. But saying 15 years is a little bit too much, because when YouTube started out, which was, I guess, 2007, that was very early on. Then you had the early adopters, and we all loved the content. And also the early adopters never thought that YouTube would become such a business, and streaming and podcasting. And this thing that we are doing, it's, you know, beyond ridiculous. And what actually happened is that at some point it became a business. And now what's happening, as I see it, I mean, I don't have to be right about these things, but the way I see this is that we had 10 years of recycling products. Obviously, there was like the digital audio domain, you know, got a lot of attention and made a lot of breakthroughs, which is something that we can talk about also. But what happened with the audio industry is that we pretty much were getting the same pedals over and over again, but people don't know it, because it seems like people have a short-term memory, like dogs, you know? It's like they forgot. Everybody forgot that there was a company named, you know, like Full Tone, for example, which made like absolutely ridiculous pedals back in the early 2000s, and then it became some kind of myth and all that kind of stuff. And people started recycling a lot of these designs later on, just putting like nice stickers, making them nicer, maybe putting two pedals into one. And that took a huge portion of the industry. Obviously, we had a lot of different great products, but not a lot of them were that great. And YouTube was also sort of exacerbating the whole thing by doing the same videos all the time. And what we have now in 2025 is that people are a little bit tired. You know, we don't want to listen to the same thing, and we don't want to watch the same videos, and pretty much the same pedals are, you know, going round and round. And you can also see a huge decline in okay, maybe it's not a huge decline, but there is a decline in videos. There is a decline in interest. There is also a decline in, you know, the pedals that you're getting. It's mostly moving to digital. So, you know, and we also have the shit with, you know, a lot of the big companies. Now, I quickly want to address a comment, and I'm going to use the power of something that I implemented. That's this. But it doesn't work. Take a look at this. I want to put the entire comment right over here, but it's not possible. In any case, John, the Space Wolf, commented, the free layout software from DIY Layout Creator is a great tool for us mad scientists. Thank you for bringing that up on the show on Tuesday. So listen up. So I've got a lot of new things coming up here on the channel. One of those things is I already started arranging some of the interviews, and one of the people that I already contacted is the developer for the DIY Layout Creator. So that's going to be very interesting for you, John. I called the guy because he is from my country, and we already discussed it that we would do some kind of a podcast thing. So I think it's going to be very interesting. He also said that he started doing a course on the DIY Layout Creator, And yeah, I think it's gonna be very interesting for all the DIYers out there. That software is getting like ridiculously good, and I think everybody needs to use that, you know. And the craziest part about that whole thing, it's actually free. Like, it's donationware. You can buy a coffee for the guy, but the software is incredible, and it saves us a lot of just a lot of time and money, and you know, it's absolutely ridiculously good. So I was what was I talking about? So yeah, oh yeah, so Mr. Muck, I'm gonna call him Mr. Muck. TC Electronic is now owned by Behringer and Henning Pauli. Yeah, I actually watched Henning's video on that, and well, you see, to be honest, I remember when I was on GitCon in 2017, we had people from TC Electronic, and Thor was Mogensen, I think is his last name. It is the Pedal Jesus guy. So that's the guy who you saw in all those videos, making videos about, you know, the TC Electronic Flashback and the Hall of Fame and all those legendary pedals. At that particular point, he was the king. He was the Pedal Jesus. Amazing. Like, and I remember seeing that guy. He was like 2 meters tall. They could drink, and they were a lot of fun, both of them. And you will forgive me, I forgot the name. He came also with a person from TC Electronic. He was amazing. I just forgot his name. But like, those guys were great. And when Behringer bought TC Electronic, I think that was the point when Thor left TC Electronic, and that was the point when a lot of these things went downhill. But you know, that's business. That's actually what happens, guys. You know, like with a lot of companies, it's a lot of people are like, I saw a video today where a guy said, like, I have no idea what they're doing. They're stupid. I mean, if you ever worked in any kind of company, you would realize that it's not all, you know, they're not all stupid, but people who work in companies at some point realize that they do have limitations. And I don't mean that these people have limitations, but limitations are brought upon them by some people who are sort of above them. And, you know, there are rules in companies, and depending on how the company is ran, depending on whether someone wants to listen to you, and you never know what kind of technical or financial problems you might run into, they're making decisions. And a lot of the big companies are truly making stupid decisions. Good day all, greetings from Netherlands. Yeah, what's up? So Nikola Crvenkovic, my friend, who actually, well, I modded a few amplifiers for him. He's one of the craziest guys in the city right over here, and he is one of the most demanding clients that you could possibly have as like an amp pedal modder and that kind of stuff. But the thing is, I love that about him, because he knows what he, well, I don't know if he knows what he wants, but he's definitely crazy. He hears everything. He's always searching for something great, you know. So we modded a few amplifiers. So got a lot of comments over here. I will have to, since this whole thing for sharing comments is not working particularly well, I will have to fix this. I will read some of the comments. So Nicola said how to set up and get an amp to deliver the most headroom to take pedals as best as possible. Let the pedals to develop the sound the most and not squash them. Well, I don't think there is a quick answer to that, but it really depends on a lot of things. But let's get back to that topic. I promise I will get back to that topic. I don't want to move over to the next topic because we had a lot of comments. So Joe's here. Thank you for commenting. Well said. There's always something going on that we don't see, understand. Forces decisions appears stupid on the surface. Absolutely. That's just the reality of working in environment, like in any kind of environment, which you know, is ran by a lot of people, especially, you know, when it comes to those big companies. You would like to see a course where I can convert my beloved PV Bandit Red Stripe into compact power amp. Well, that's a great topic, but maybe that would be a better topic for a YouTube video than a course. I don't think that a lot of people would buy that course, if you know what I mean. It's a lot of work to make it. So Space Wolf writes, how is Dark Glass doing these days? I remember when we were both bouncing ideas around on the forums, I recently saw them releasing their PCB and such for home builds. Actually, I haven't followed anything. I just know that, well, I know Dark Glass, they had this very successful like bass preamp, if I'm not mistaken. You can correct me, but I know very little about that company. Possibly because of the bass preamp. When I see that a company is making something for bass players, I just skip it. Fuck that shit. I don't want to do that. So, want to start with a hot take and name companies you think are making stupid decisions? Definitely, we're going to be doing that in these lives because I don't care. We can talk about, whatever. So, yeah, well, I saw that Henning's video about TC Electronic was quite interesting. But yeah, TC Electronic is, well, is it gone? Possibly gone. But if it was bought by a corporation, you know how it works. It's probably gonna be a time in which TC Electronic is going to suck ass, and then at some point somebody's gonna buy it and maybe make some kind of resurgence, but it's gonna cost them a lot of money to buy the brand back if they sold it. Like, we don't know what kind of contracts they did, like, let's be realistic. We don't know a lot about these things, but the reality is what actually Henning made a point, and there were also some other videos regarding this, is that a lot of these Behringer is actually bringing the prices down. And if we are to be realistic, let me show you something. I got something. So take a look at this. I've got a TC Hall of Fame, all right? And I've got Thor's signature on it. He gifted me this one, and actually it's here on the front, but I don't think you can see that. So what I wanted to say is that, this stuff is not all that bad. If I'm going to be completely honest, it is not my favorite reverb pedal. I loved the TC Electronic, what was the name? Alter Ego. Alter Ego was the one they did with, what was it, Pro Guitar Shops or something? They did like emulations of vintage units, like tape and analog stuff. It was great. I remember that one had like great presets, and the flashback is great. And when I bought the flashback, it was 250 euros. And I remember seeing it a few years ago. It was like 100 euro pedal. I was like, how? How is that pedal, which was in the 250 euro range? It was expensive. When somebody, at least here, when somebody saw you have like a TC Electronic flashback, and I think I was the first one in my city to have it, it was like, wow, that was the thing. I remember Brian May going out and using the TC Electronic flashback in 2012 Olympics in London. That was like, a big deal. So that's a good sounding pedal, like a really decent sounding pedal. And now it's like 100 euros. So that's kind of weird. But realistically, companies are always going to do these kinds of things, and we can't do anything about it other than go and buy it for 100 euros and be super happy about our purchase. Because, that stuff I think sounds great for that amount of money. But also, these cheap products, like, not all of these cheap products actually sound that good. That's the reality of it. Whether some people like to admit that or not, whether some people like to be offended about that. But the reality is not all products are that good. Some of them, yeah, but So let's take a look at these comments right over here. Oh, GPTRFX, what's up? Thank you for joining the live. You're actually helping me a lot, so I'm not alone. But yeah, it is a thing that I want to address now, and that is what Adam just said, and that is, want to start the hot take and name companies that are making stupid decisions. Why not? Should we talk about, for example, Marshall? Yeah, that's like a thing that I had in the last month, and I mentioned that on the previous podcast as like, Marshall amps are not doing really well in the service department, because I got quite a few of them to service lately with extremely stupid problems. And if I'm completely honest about it, the ones that I tried, like the newest one that I tried, was considerably better, but everything from 2000 till like recently was a disaster. You know, when it comes to PCBs, when it comes to the selection of components, which is, guys, it's beyond ridiculous to use. Like, they use the cheapest ceramic capacitors for like coupling capacitors on high voltages, like tube stages. And I understand, like, ceramic capacitors are fine with high voltages, but sometimes they can ring, and you know, they can be microphonic, and they are not the they are furthest from the audiophile choice when it comes to capacitors, but they are the cheapest ones. And sometimes it's super weird that, you know, a company like that should save money on stupid things like that. So that's my thing with Marshall. I don't like new Marshall amplifiers. I don't think they sound that good, but I want to try the JTM, because I saw a lot of people who tried the JTM and they were like super happy about it. So possibly it is better. So Space Wolf says, to be really real, not even some of the expensive shit sounds good either. Whoa, yeah. Oh yeah, we're gonna be talking about that quite a lot. You should ask Thomas Blug for a vacant job offering. If he's smart, and I highly suppose that he is, he will surely hire as his team to finally finish up the Amp X. Well, you know, I actually never even considered in the last few years to work for someone, but I guess sometimes some collaborations can be made if anybody would see me, you know, fitting for a position. But I still have to prove myself. I still have to prove myself to you, all of you, by doing these lives. I honestly think this is the absolute best way for you guys to meet me, to figure out, you know, how I think, what I do. And we're going to be doing a lot of great things here. I want to design pedals live. I want to have these discussions. I think that's going to be, you know, like super great. And I also don't have to edit videos. I'll be honest with you. This is so much better. Adam Stencil, I'm surprised the EU didn't do anything about the Marshall's conductive power and amp PCBs. It should have been a complete recall. Marshall's conductive power amp. I guess I missed something on the forums. Was there a problem with a PC on the DSL? But what year? That's the thing, because those DSLs, I always get a different one. Hard to do this if no one tunes in. Yeah, it's actually, you know, the first time you have to do a live, you figure, like, okay, I'm going to do a live, but what if nobody comes? What if nobody comes? What am I going to do? What am I going to talk about? But honestly, I'd just sit here and rant. Anyway, I'm alone at home, so I can be talking to myself and having fun. So, yeah. Oh yeah, Space Wolf is mentioning about outsourcing stuff to China, but charging the same. Yeah, that happens a lot with a lot of things in the industry. Yeah. So JPTR FX, the Titan 250 watts, if I'm not mistaken, that is this amplifier, which was a full tube amplifier that was, I think I saw Henning's video on some, was it some kind of festival or a fair in Germany or something like this? So maybe you can tell me if I'm right, if that is the Titan, because I forgot the name. I'm getting old. Almost 30 people. I can't see how many people are there in the chat. Let me just put this whole chat thing back into the wait. Okay, so I'm right about that. So blockadilly, I can't read this now, or I don't. So actually, quite a lot of your views line up with my own observations over the last 40 years. Well, I will be completely honest with you guys about, about everything. I started this thing because I want to be absolutely free to say what I want and to express whatever the fuck I want to express. And yeah, I am sort of an old soul because I do usually think I usually make friends better with people who are considerably older than me, and I don't really think that I say anything special. I just think that using reason about some things is okay sometimes. I think that most people are completely unreasonable, and there is a huge portion of the YouTube community in particular, which is not competent to talk about some things. And that is something that nobody wants to mention because everybody is afraid of the backlash that if you say that somebody is incompetent, and I'm not going to name names, because everybody's like running a business, a lot of these guys are doing a living. Sometimes in a lot of the videos, they get into things that honestly they're not competent to talk about. I do try not to talk about stuff that I'm not competent to talk about. And regarding the competency, I don't need to put my CV over here on my YouTube channel or whatever. I will do what I'm doing so you figure out whether I'm competent or I'm not competent. And it's completely fine if you like my opinions, or if you dislike my opinions, that's yet again completely fine, and I don't care. So let's go back to the Titan 250. That was interesting. So yeah, the Titan 250, I saw it but it was like a year ago or something like this, when I saw that amplifier first time. Well, here's the thing, I don't really okay, let's break this down. I know very little about that amplifier. I am pretty sure the way how it looked and all that kind of jazz, it was great. You see something, it seems fine. The guy who was getting interviewed by Henning in that particular video, he seemed like he was okay. And, you always look at these things. And when you're doing the stuff that I do, when you watch people, when you listen to people talk, what you actually do is you try and read through the lines, you know what I mean? And sometimes because you know something about amplifiers, maybe sometimes I can understand something, what he says a little bit better. But when it comes to the concept, as I said, I don't know a lot about the amplifier. When it comes to the concept of 250 watts, it is quite interesting. It is not unachievable, because what people don't understand is that tube amplifiers are like the tube amplifiers that we use are basically just not really well engineered. You know what I mean? Like if we're talking about like standard Marshalls, Fenders, and that kind of stuff, if you go into the hi-fi world and if you look at some of the early designs, you will realize that you can achieve a lot of power with tubes by very good engineering. And I just don't know the 250 watts, what would the people use it for, except having this enormous amount of headroom for a very special type of low end. I would really love to make an amplifier such as that one. And the way how I understood it, that what the guy was saying in the interview is that they were employing some of these old techniques that you practically have in the books, using some higher voltages inside and achieving a higher amount of power, which to me is, I'll be honest with you, I absolutely love that, because it is not a copy of a Marshall, it is not a copy of a high watt, it is not a copy of a Fender amplifier. That's what I love. I would love that people do that more. JPTR FX, are you the guy from the interview? Like, I'm sorry, but I don't know. Why are you asking me about that amplifier? But what I just said, I really mean it. I love the fact that somebody is doing something new in terms of design when it comes to those amplifiers. I absolutely love Marshalls. And I absolutely love all of these amplifiers. Like, come on, it is the best thing in the world. And it works. Though some of these designs are proven so well that that's great. But what I would like to see is, let's see some companies build something new. Let's see some companies work on some new designs to achieve something different. Not telling me a story, you copy the Marshall power section and you put like 5881s or something telling me it's different tone and whatever. Yeah, for sure. Some stuff is different and it could sound different, but they have been bullshitting the population for a long fucking time. And even if you are doing some kind of Marshall, not a copy of a Marshall, but a take on a Marshall amplifier, do something about it. Make I guess Friedman made it well, because Friedmans are not Marshalls. They are Marshall-esque, but they're not really Marshalls. Frayette is great because I like Frayette stuff because it is different. It's engineered differently, so there is something new about it. Unfortunately, most companies don't do that. Was that a rant? And was it a good one? That's the question now. So let's see now. I want to run through the comments. Adam Stansel saying there's a lot of issues of attention span and lack of reading comprehension nowadays. Well, yeah, the attention span is a huge thing, and oh my God, we can talk about these things for a long time. It is a huge problem with the population. I have the same thing in my house with my girlfriend, to be honest. It's like, because of the job that she is doing, she needs to spend a lot of time on the phone communicating with people, organizing. But what you don't realize is that you're constantly getting drawn with some reels and some bullshit, and you waste a lot of time. And that is all I feel. Obviously, I'm not qualified to talk about these things in any scientific manner, but I guess it's only if you are a person who is awake and you are sort of you realize that you are here in this moment. You can understand, you see stuff around you. You're not zombified, you're right. You're not an autopilot. Then you realize that this stuff is weird. We're getting so much information in a very short amount of time, and we are burning out. And that's why people don't have the attention span. That's why people go and, buy a Marshall amplifier. that unfortunately that's what happens. But the only solution to that, in my opinion, is education, and there is nothing else that can help it out. So Dog Days, my next amp build is going to be a Bogner Snorkeler 50, but with an 18-watt output section. Yeah, that's really interesting. Small amps are something that take a look at this. I want to see if I can get these comments out, but no, it's not working. I installed some plugin for showing you the comments, but I'm gonna do that in for the next live stream. I'm gonna make sure that it actually works well. Yeah, go for that. So 18-watt output section. What kind of architecture how you're gonna achieve those 18 watts? I'm interested. Is it going to be some kind of parallel architecture? Is it going to be some kind of a push-pull architecture? And there are a lot of ways how you can do it. Let me know how you plan on doing that. So what do I think about those little bitty tube heads like Orange or even Joyo? Emperor Kamikaze. So what do I think about those tube heads? This is what I think. I remember when Joyo came out, it didn't sound that bad. It was like a fun thing because it was like something like ridiculously cheap. I think on GitCon it was around 150 euros or something like that. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe I forgot the price completely. But it was okay. It had a preamplifier tube and it would have some kind of transistor output section. Usually how you would achieve this, I don't know, because they would achieve, what was that, like 5 watts or something? You can achieve it either way. You just make a super clean transistor power section, and you would and you voice the preamplifier well, and you're gonna get a decent sound. You know, that stuff can work. There is no question about that. But regarding the orange, I never tried those very mini orange heads, but I did quite some work on orange amplifiers. And I'll tell you what I saw last time I had an orange, which is in the price range of 2,000 euros, was underwhelming. And the amplifier sounds great. I mean, it sounds fine. You know, I was not overly, I don't even know what to say, but it sounds fine. It sounds great. I'd play it. You know, it's okay. But the way how it's done inside, you can see that it's all Asia, Far East, built PCBs, shit, using screen resistors, which are quarter watt, which is, you know, debatable whether you should be using. Usually in amplifiers, they would use bigger screen resistors. I mean, in terms of wattage, they would use the bigger ones because they would not burn if something happens in the amplifier. But there is also another philosophy where you should use a quarter watt. So it should burn if something happens. So, you know, I would usually see amplifiers use the bigger ones. But in general, it's a very cheap build for 2,000 euros. That's what I think about that one. And I also had a lot of work done on the base Terror. It's pretty much the same architecture, and it has this SMPS, a solid state power switch mode power supply, and it tends to fail. Those MOSFETs tend to fail, and it can be quite tricky to fix. So I remember getting this one, and luckily it's for a guy from a band in the city, super cool guy. He also follows the channel. And what happened with that design is that I repaired it for him, and then it happened again. The same problem happened again. And then I had to do some kind of monkey business with it. And after I did some monkey business with it, it never happened again, because they sort of make it so it's always on the edge. You know what I mean? On the edge of breaking, on the edge of its power capacity, in terms of, like, in this case, he always had the heater voltage part, the heater powering part fail, and the diodes would fail, because the diodes, the way how it, I don't want to get too deep into this, maybe sometime we can get into it, but it was a problem. I had to use a completely different diode that could not fit on the PCB, so I did monkey business. And now it works, like, usually forever. I hope that it's going to work forever. So, JPT RFX, we employed a OG for the AM 30 years of tube amp service. So you are the guy from the interview. Amazing. Actually, what we can do is you can join me live sometime. We can talk about it. I would like to learn about the amplifier. That would be super cool. I have an American hand-wired Plexi clone Fargan. Wow, there's a lot of comments here. Just got a PRS Tremonti 15. I don't know a lot about PRS amplifiers, but I guess they're fine products, you know. I saw that a lot of people would use that 15 watt small amplifier. You get some fat gainy tones, you know. I guess if you're fine with the price point, usually the PRS stuff would be a little bit on the expensive side for us Europeans here, you know, even though I have two PRS guitars, but both of them came from the States. So PRS discovered during their extensive and expensive analysis of legendary tube amps used by legends on their way, and only 30% of the sound were controllable 70s beautiful chaos noise. Let's see. The guitar community is often a parrot community, often get wrong, and often follows and prescribes a new trend. If I use all the gear they hate, I get the better sound than the gear they advise. Yeah. Why don't I design an amp and offer it as a kit? Just wait for it. I actually want to do I have a very nice project that's, you know, already planned out, but for the last year, I didn't have time to do it. And I'm talking about a Sound City amplifier, a 1970 Sound City amplifier, which is 150 watts, so 6 EL34s, and I'm gonna rip everything out, and I'm gonna use those old partridge transformers, and I'm gonna make a high gain beast. It's not gonna be 250 watt like your amplifiers, but I'm gonna try and make it as best as I can. Do some kind of push-pull AB2 type of stuff, and make it super ridiculously loud for that excess headroom. So we're gonna be seeing a lot of that on the channel, most definitely. So I'm running. This is getting slightly technical. All right, so I just wanted to go through the comments because I've got a lot of comments for a first live session. That's ridiculously amazing. So wait, can somebody tell me, so how many people do we actually have live? Concurrent viewers, 25. I can't even read viewer activity. What the fuck? I don't even know this, what's happening in this. I don't know stuff, all right? So bear with me. So let's see. So JPTR, we're gonna talk about it. Can you maybe send me a message on Instagram? We're gonna schedule it. Let's talk about these things. I would absolutely love that. So I don't know how to put this chat back into the, all right, so I made it big. So let's see. Any IR packs in my plans? Well, to be honest, I had a plan to do IRs, but honestly, I don't want to do these things necessarily. I created a few IRs that come with those Tonex packs that I offer on the website, but they only come as part of the Tonex application. There is nothing special about these things because today you've got ridiculous amounts of IRs offered on the internet. That's at least my take on it, even though I do have conditions to make some great IRs because my best friend runs a studio. Actually, he doesn't run it anymore. He's got a lot of cabinets, a lot of mics. We've got the right conditions to do all kinds of IRs, but I think you can find everything on the internet. I just use, other IRs from other people because they sound great. So honestly, that's my take on IRs. Maybe someday if I had something special to offer, honestly, if I'm going to make you another Marshall Cab IR, stuff like that. The thing about these, why I actually made those Tonex packs is that, you see, the website needs to start with something. And I'll be honest with you, when you start a YouTube channel in 2025, the stuff that's happening is not exactly the same compared to when you started in 2015. You actually need to, because it's a slow pace thing. Videos are going slow. There is a lot of competition. So you actually need to offer at least something, because people like when you offer them something, they see that there is some kind of value in what you're doing. That's why I made those Tonex packs. And I do think that the Tonex packs that I made are, I've never seen anything on the internet that is that complete. Like, I did a Mesa Boogie rectifier with like 28 shots of it, and I think that as well with all the other amplifiers. And in addition to that, none of those amplifiers are stock amplifiers. All of the amplifiers that I have as part of those Tonex packs are amplifiers either modded by me, and only that Evil 800 Marshall is not modded by me. But it's also ridiculously special amplifier. So it's like modded stuff. It's the DIY thing, you know what I mean? It's something that not everybody has. That's why, I figured that, all right, that's something special that I can offer. That's why it's there. So, yes, Adam Stencil says, really tedious and annoying with the sine wave sweeps. When you have to do a lot of these packs, it is tedious. And it's a lot of, it's not a lot of work. I'm not working in a coal mine, but it's work. You have to do them. You have to set these amplifiers up. You just have to make it well. You know what I mean? And reamping is not always that easy. Sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes you have to get that good sound. But realistically, whatever, I think that the Tonex packs that you get with Tonex sound pretty much most of them like crap, compared to when I compare my packs and those. And this is not a pitch on like, just like buy my Tonex packs, fuck them. But there is really a difference. And I bet if you would get some great Tonex packs by other professional, reampers and some companies out there, I bet that it is a huge improvement to the actual Tonex device, because it's a lot about that particular pack. And if you know what you're doing, you can pretty much use any of them and sound great. So Space Wolf says, you're doing great. Go watch the first episode of Pedal Dive podcast for reference. Thank you. I'm really trying. Ivan Horvat, when will you cover using the Tonex ENV environment with pedals in some live situations? Well, that is definitely a possibility. I would love to make some videos, maybe as part of a live session like this, because I think it requires a little bit more talk. And I hope that you people are not tired of me talking, but when you make those videos that I make, sometimes sometimes it's a lot of work, because you have to plan those videos out and everybody wants their videos to be seen. So what I'm saying now is not that, I only want to make videos for views, but the problem is that the algorithm works that way, that there are some videos out there that I think deserved more views, and some topics that actually deserve more views, but if it's not super interesting, if it doesn't meet some stupid YouTube requirements, then nobody sees that topic, and that kind of topic that you're mentioning now is something that we definitely need to address, because there's a lot of stuff to be said about that. And I can definitely share some of my experiences, both as a musician and as a live sound engineer, that can help people a lot when they're setting up their guitar sounds. So definitely we're going to do that in one of the live streams. I download your packs and have been waiting to upload them. Just been slightly lazy, busy. Yeah, obviously. I use Tonex Live all the time. Great. Adam, also, by the way, if you want to share the IRs I sent you a while back on the website for free. Oh, Adam, thank you very much. By the way, Adam sent me some of his he actually sampled his was it a Freyet Deliverance 1 or 2? I don't remember, using the Neural Amp Modeler. Now, the Neural Amp Modeler is something that pretty much does the exact same thing like Tonex. You just have to do it manually, but it actually sounds amazing. He also sent me some IR packs which sound great. Maybe I would utilize it in some of the packs if I see it fit, but I just don't stress about these things, because honestly, everybody has their own preference. And I think that's the fucking beauty of it. Yeah, Deliverance 120 from 2018. Those are actually great sounding neural captures. Amazing. Like honestly, it sounds great. But as I said, I don't really stress about these things, because I like it all equally. I like those Tonex packs. I like the different Tonex packs from different amplifiers. You get some of these, a little bit of a different color with each and every one of them. Different IRs, a lot of stuff sounds great if you can make it sound great. What I think that people miss most of the time is making it sound great in that particular scenario, in that particular situation. I think that you should have options when it comes to IR. And most importantly, what I think is that people should learn. And there are some people who know, but there are a lot of people who don't know. And no matter what IR pack, Tonex pack, and whatever, you name it, pedal amplifier you buy, you will struggle if you can't hear the stuff. And this is not about being insulting to someone. What I see the problem with guitar players is that you know, most guitar players get insulted if you tell them something. And you always have to really, really pay attention how you work with guitar players. Maybe that's a video for YouTube, you know. Are guitar players divas? Are guitar players insane or mentally ill? Because honestly, that is always you have to be like, you know, like a pedagogue in school. You really need to pay attention how you say something to a guitar player. And I did that as a live engineer. It's like, you know, they would get insulted if you tell them that something is not right. It is not like, oh, it's not right, let's fix it. No, most of the time it's some kind of drama. And that's the same thing with, you know, I mean, we don't need to talk about the YouTube commenters, but in general with a lot of people on YouTube, and the industry is honestly exploiting that instead of teaching people what to listen for, what to focus on, because that stuff is taught, you know. Guitarists are more ADHD. Synth guys, autistic. Yeah. All right, synth guys are also special, but synth guys, not all the time, but a lot of times, synth people are more technically like capable and usually more quiet than guitar players, but they would know a little bit more about audio and that kind of stuff, where guitar players just pretend to know. And that is, I think, the biggest problem. When you get a guitar player who knows what he is doing, then, you know, he'd make anything sound good. That's my opinion. So I guess let me just read through the comments. Ivan, you're talking is the reason why we're here. Not only that you're a technical Jedi, you're a great guitar player. Thank you very much. I don't want to talk about my guitar playing because my guitar playing is horrible, as I don't play guitar and I haven't for the last 5, potentially 6 years. Today I played guitar for 15 minutes and I should play more, and I promise that I will play more, and my playing is going to get better. But by the way, I do have my guitar here, and I have set up the entire live thing that I can stream a great guitar sound to you guys, and we can test pedals out and build pedals and that kind of stuff possibly in the future. If you don't make me rant, which might become a thing, you know, let's go to Marco's live. Let's provoke him. So he starts ranting and, you know, shitting on stuff. So maybe it's going to be fun. But I'm going to remember you, whoever provoked me. So let's see. Adam, based on guitar forums, yes, there's something wrong with them. So many divorced middle-aged men. It's easy to see them why they're divorced. Yeah. Synth guys are slightly technical. Yeah, I mean, they should be, because if you want to make good synth sounds, there is no way around the slightly technicalness. You know what I mean? And I'm also saying this from experience because, you see, I studied computer graphics. And when I was supposed to get my diploma dissertation, at that particular point, I already figured out that I don't want to do any graphics, but we also had some classes in audio, and I was really in good relations with that professor, and we kind of made a deal that I'm going to do a diploma dissertation in audio, and I wrote 2 synthesizer softwares, and I have some experience with synths. The thing with synths is that synthesizer programming forces you to learn the logic and some basic sound stuff. You know, guitar players just buy toys. I mean, of course, there are synthesizer players who can use a preset, but if they know at least anything about setting up presets, then they're forced to learn what an ADSR is, what an oscillator is. They're forced to learn these things, where guitar players, they just do the pressing the stomp and it's like, oh, I like it, I don't like it, and this sounds good and that sounds good, where they didn't really, they're not objective. They're super, super subjective about these things. And hopefully maybe this trend could potentially change in the future, where people would start actually being a little bit more realistic about all that. Like, it's great, you're a great guitar player. I don't compete. I don't really care. But you know what I mean. nobody is offending your guitar playerness. We're just talking objectively about how can we make this better. And if you really want to make it better, then you'll be a cool dude about it, you know? So, let's see. Bass players are laid back and cool guys, most of them. That's actually true. That's actually absolutely true. But yeah, we make fun of them, I guess. I personally find the Tonex great for clean tones. Latency in the pedal is pretty good too. High gain, I find NAMP pedals make better copies. I wouldn't know. Yeah, but Tonex can make decent sounds. All right, people getting... Oh yeah, Dave Barry, good evening. Ross from Friends is a synth guy. Really? All right, so we've got some people, like, people are making friends here. I love that. So I have to say something about John the Space Wolf. All right, so I get a message one day on Instagram, and it was obviously by someone who I don't know, and somehow I don't really speak on social media so much, you know, with people. I kind of, because of the job that I was doing, I kind of distanced myself from everything, and now I start getting all these messages from people since I started the whole YouTube thing. And when you see that someone has a Space Wolf in their name, and if you take a look at his profile picture, there is a wolf in a spacesuit. And I thought, you know, I see this guy with this amazing picture, and I thought to myself, like, this is someone who most certainly understands high quality substances for leaving the plains of the earth for certain periods of time. That's why I loved it. I was like, this must be something good. And he invited me to the Hello Sailor podcast, where you'll find the weirdest people on the planet talking about actually making pedals, which is absolutely ridiculous. I can't believe that, you know, that stuff exists. And I will do my best to do my part with this channel to make that whole story better. But I'm super, super happy. Like, so many comments, so many people alive and live. And I have to see now, we've got 29 concurrent viewers. A Space Wolf from... All right, so let me tell you, like, Warhammer 40,000. So, you know, I have to say something about myself. I never played Warhammer. I am a Elder Scrolls guy. So now everybody's going to leave the chat room. Bye. I'm joking. I mean, I'm not joking about the whole Elder Scrolls thing, but yeah. Elder Scrolls and World of Warcraft. That's my, you know, that's my stuff. Pardon me, it's the cigarettes. So let me see, what else do we have in the chat? I have to do something about the chat so I can actually see it better, and so I can show the comments in whatever this weird. I use some weird plugin, and if I switch it over, okay, so you see, we can have this. The only problem is that some bigger comments. Yeah, so my friend, I never watched Friends, and I'll be completely honest with you, I hated that show. There were so many people that loved that show, but it was never my thing. I don't know. Like, American sitcoms, that's a sitcom, right? I didn't mess the word up. Is something that I didn't necessarily like. I just like a little bit different humor. I mean, I like South Park and Family Guy, like that kind of stuff. Friends was, I don't know. Maybe I was not the right generation, if you know what I mean, to understand that show. So we've got somebody from the Balkans saying Stepan Herceg. Let's see. But still, we can't see the entire comment. That's the problem with this whole thing. Bijelo dugme or divlje jagode. So these are some bands from the Balkans right over here, and he's asking me whether I like one of those bands. And I'll be completely honest with you. If I had to choose between those two, I'd have to say Bielodugme, which might be weird, but I don't know. I haven't listened to that in probably 20 years. So, if you know what I mean. Do I know anything about breakage gear during the early days? No, I actually don't. And it's a topic that I might research, and then we might make a TikTok live where we can actually speak in our language about that stuff. But I would definitely go and research that. So Freddie Kadeth or Kadeth, sorry about that. I have an old Marshall Super Bass 100 watts, louder than any other amp I have. How come old amplifiers have so much more volume than newer amps? Well, Fred, it was not Freddie, Fred or Frede. Tell you what, that's an interesting question, which a lot of people don't really understand that particular topic. And I do have an article on my website regarding that. And I do have an article regarding power calculation in amplifiers. And tell you what, those old amplifiers, they are not necessarily louder than new amplifiers. The problem here in this story is making an honest comparison. If you have a super bass that's 100 watts, it is 100 watts when the gain is at 2. So if it's a super bass, it doesn't have a master volume. So when you put the gain at 2 with a typical guitar today with some kind of pickups which are not like ultra vintage, already at between 2 and 3 the amplifier is blowing out 100 watts. Everything above that, the amplifier starts distorting. Therefore, the entire calculation, the power calculation is different. And in a weird way, you can say that it would have more watts. A lot of new amplifiers don't do that. And that's also the difference between transistor amplifiers and tube amps, where tube amplifiers are essentially made to be overdriven. Now, realistically, if you look at this product from a distance and you say, like, okay, it is like that, so I don't want to be biased now, like I like tube amps and I hate transistor amps, but realistically, they could have used a different potentiometer, potentially a different taper or something like that, different technique. So you would actually get maximum, wattage or maximum power at, when your potentiometer is at 10. But then you have the problem with what is the input level. So there are a lot of things that are weird about that. And we can also make only a live session talking about that stuff, because amplifier gain is fixed. And also the input levels that we use nowadays are different from what would happen back in the day. But people are usually surprised with vintage gear that it seems louder, but essentially it is normal. It just distorts. And usually we like it when it's at least slightly distorted. And that's already above 100 watts with the super bass. So, do you know what cigarettes cost in the USA? I know. I think I know, but really depends on where you're at. But it's much more expensive than it's here. But I don't smoke that much. I'm just joking, and I roll tobacco, so I like just rolling tobacco. So a lot of comments. All right, I need to run through this. People are talking about friends learning English. All right, so the Space Wolf, I love that topic. So the nickname came from other people's observations about me and my lycanthropic traits combined with the psychonautic shamanic track I'm on in this incarnation. I love that. So we're also going to organize that the Space Wolf comes online with me so we can talk about controversial topics. So we don't really need to talk about pedals and amplifiers all the time. Maybe we can, like you would have on the Joe Rogan's experience, like a little bit of aliens, a little bit of, politics. That's not what we are going to be doing, but you know what I mean? Just aliens and controversies and stuff like that. So and it's what people started calling me, so I just decided to my own. Besides, the alternative would be going by a burner name. I got donuts. All right. Yeah, donuts is a funny name, but I like Space Wolf better. People call me Jupiter because I'm fat and full of gas. Right. You're asking me, do I like tacos? I love tacos. I love all food. By the way, you see, one of the main reasons why I came back home, which is Serbia, is that we have the best fucking food on the fucking planet, all right? And I've been places. And the food here is ridiculously good. But there's also amazing food all around the globe. But as I said, the food here is ridiculously good. And I know that people who are from around here know exactly what I'm talking about. We have a huge problem when we move to other places with food. You're just used to something really good. Trump always chickens out taco. No, I don't know those tacos. Love from Greece. Yeah, man. See you in a month and a half, maybe. Should be coming down to Greece because Greece is absolute legendary place. If you haven't been to Greece, I know a lot of people in the chat and people who are following the channel are from the States. So sometimes when we talk these European topics, they don't really relate to them because, they're not from around here. But people, you should go to Greece before, whatever happens in your lives. You should go to Greece once. European food is 10 out of 10 when you close your eyes. Wow. How well do I handle spice? Actually, very well. Where I come from, which is the north of Serbia, we are on the border with Hungary, and traditionally over here, people make a lot of paprika or like the peppers, like the red powdery thing, and it's ridiculously hot. Although our traditional cuisine is not that it can be spicy, but it's not spicy like Indian food, if you know what I mean. We don't use like traditionally like curries and stuff like that. But I do love Indian food. I love all, like, I would say, when people ask me about food, the thing that I always say is that my favorite cuisine is Lebanese, and in general, the Middle Eastern one, just because it's different from what we have in the Balkans, and our stuff in the Balkans is like the second best, you know what I mean? But I love like Vietnamese food. I just love all that stuff. So I don't know. It's actually hard to find here other foods other than our Balkan traditional food because it's usually shit, especially if you try the real thing. But I recently tried a good Indian restaurant. There's some new guy. He was super nice. And he, yeah, made some really, really good Indian food. But you have to tell him to make it spicy. Otherwise, he makes it like for Europeans, which is like, no, man, I've been there. I know how spicy you eat. I want that shit. Problem with that is like after 2 hours, the spice starts coming back up. It's a ridiculously weird feeling, Not only that the spice is coming back up, but you start, working your head like this. Fuck that, man. Like, but it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous how good Indian food can be. So, how do I feel about intellectual property in music gear? I worry with cloning everything and the proliferation of profiling and modeling. It makes innovation in amp pedal designs more risky. So, Christopher Hastings, thank you for a very nice question. As this question is going to break the talk about food. This is a great question. I think there is no very simple answer to that. There are a lot of problems to that question, and one of those problems is not to the question. Actually, there are a lot of problems to that whole situation, and then more like the answer. The problem is that whenever you have some kind of intellectual property, you need someone who is going to decide whether that property is original or it is not original. You know what I mean? And that property would have to be some kind of court and some people who are assigned by some kind of legal entity that are going to do such a thing. Now, the problem with a lot of guitar related gear and music gear that we are using is that most of these things you cannot really patent in any way. You know what I mean? And it is very hard to protect it and to protect yourself. Where you, so I'll give you a very very plain example because I'm super open about these things and I don't care. You know, we all try to live of something, and currently this is I do this thing full time. The academy, everything. So I left everything in my life. I'm going to do this. And then when you create some kind of design, you're faced with the question, should I make a YouTube video about this? And should I talk about this in a YouTube video? Because, you know, I get nothing out of it. You know what I mean? You make a YouTube video, you get nothing out of it. You show it to the world, everybody can make it, and you get like, you know, $3 from your YouTube video, and that's how it works. And then you're faced with this problem. But realistically, when you make something, you don't really make stuff that's like super original. I mean, you cannot claim. We had the discussion on the Hello Sailor podcast, you know, when I made the video about the Small Pretender, then I realized later that some other people did it as well. And also like Jack Orman on music.com also has his version. This is a slightly different thing, but nobody owns an RLC circuit. So that is a huge problem. Now, companies that can actually do and builders that can actually do like original designs, then you have to invest a lot of money for protecting it and patenting it. So some kind of Behringer doesn't come, take your schematic and make that fucking shit for people, and even put, you know, like make it in the same box like they did with the clone thing, and there was some kind of drama, and you know, like YouTubers making YouTube videos to get some views. That's just how it works. But I'm getting thirsty. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's hard to patent this. What when you ask me how do I feel about intellectual property, the way how I feel is that whenever somebody makes something, he deserves to get something out of it. You know what I mean? He deserves, whether he wants respect or if he wants money, or if he wants a pat on the back, it's up to him to charge, you know, what he wants. If he wants to make it a donation, if he wants to sell it for $2-3, or if he wants to put it out for, I don't know what amount of money. But stealing anything is something that, you know, assholes do. Nobody who is making gear wants to steal anything, but realistically, you know, especially the guitar gear, it's like everybody is in a way stealing or making some kind of take on something. So let me just run through the comments. I'm talking about Greece and Lebanese food, and Christian, hey, what's up? I'll just get to your question now in a second. I would like to finish up with this intellectual property thing, which I was rambling on now for a while. By the way, my English is serving me today. Realistically, whoever builds something, whoever invests some kind of time into something should be fully respected in those regards. But intellectual property in this business as really rarely stuff. I think the biggest problem is that most people cannot protect their intellectual property because usually that stuff is nothing special. You would be actually surprised. You know, I'll give you a super great example, all right? So intellectual property in the guitar world, PRS 513. Soon I'll be having a a really nice video about this. So this guitar, you see these pickups, they're weird, right? So these pickups are nothing like the typical pickup, the typical PAF. So what happens with these is that Paul Reed Smith and another person, you can find this in Google Patents, by the way, so you can fact check me. They created these pickups, and these pickups are rather original. The way how they create, you can read the whole patent. The way how they are created is quite interesting. They tried to make a fully efficient pickup, like a more efficient pickup. They're engineered well. They designed a lot of these. Everything is original about that pickup, and they have a patent on these pickups. They obviously have the funds to enforce such a patent, such a thing, where a lot of people from a lot of countries do not have that particular situation where you can actually fund patenting on an international level. That is a huge problem, but those pickups are original, and it has been created, and it is their intellectual property. It should be that way, like that's realistic. Now, what happens is that I didn't like these pickups, but I love that guitar. And I created a piece of electronics inside to make the sound better, And we're going to be having that on the channel. Obviously, I want to do it like in detail with some very provocative thumbnail and title. But what happens is that the piece of electronics that I created was, I think it's great. And I also I was thinking about like, maybe I should offer this thing for people, because this is something that can be used with other guitar pickups. And it is a thing that can be implemented in other guitar, any other guitar, pretty much. The big problem is that I haven't discovered the wheel. I just used some engineering knowledge and some circuit that was already used in electronics and is used in a bunch of electronic devices, just not in guitars, if you know what I mean, or guitar amplifiers. Rarely you would see this particular design, what I did in that guitar, you would rarely see that in any guitar equipment. So do I own the intellectual property of that? No, but I do kind of, I brought something new to the table. You know what I mean? So you figure out a new implementation for a certain device, and you use it in a certain way that sort of can result in like good music, but it's not really intellectual property, So as I said, it's a rather complicated topic, and I'm just speaking what's on my mind now. I haven't even thought about it, but these are just like completely like uncensored opinions now. Like, I really think that whoever builds something, even if it's a copy of a Marshall, they should be properly rewarded for what they are doing if they're doing it right. What I don't like. All right, let's do rant mode. I need to drink some water because before this. What I honestly don't like is kind of the thing that I was saying in some of my videos, even though a lot of my videos were not really thought through well. And, as I do stuff unscripted, sometimes I don't really say all the things right. But yeah, I made some provocative titles and some provocative thumbnails. I said some things. But I figured that, if you look at the analytics, most people actually understood what I was talking about. And what I was talking about is like, listen, let's try an example. This is a Coke Zero. Don't lead me to believe that this is Fanta. All right? Because it's Coke Zero. Just say it. That's the point. That's the point of all of these videos that, I would make and kind of criticize a piece of gear and say something that's, kind of like provocative on YouTube. And I'm not criticizing any company. I know very well what kind of struggles, especially the smaller companies have. And for sure, I'm going to bring people on this live and on the podcast, and we're going to be talking about these things. I fully respect, especially like the smaller companies. When I criticize something, I criticize a Marshall, which is 4,000 euros with a thin PCB, for example. That's the stuff that I criticize. Everything else, it's okay. But the problem is that most of the YouTube videos do videos on some kind of a pedal, but they actually know very little about that pedal. They just, try it and how it sounds and okay, and turn the knobs and okay. And then you've got a lot of people in the comments, it's different, this is different. Yeah, for sure, pedals are different. You change one capacitor, it turns into a different pedal, for sure. I would just love that people would use a little bit more of some reasonable terminology, that people are not super confused. Because the moment you realize this, what I'm talking about, let's just say that there are 10,000 types of pedals now in the world, which is probably the right number, because it's a ridiculous number of how many different models and brands and all that kind of stuff we have. When you realize that pretty much all of them copied 20 circuits, then you can narrow it down. It can make it easier for you. You could be like, oh, okay, I don't like tube screamers. I like clones, or I like Timmys. And then, all right, so I like clones. What do I have? I have the Tumnus, I have the J-Rocket Archer, I have whatever, the Seriatone or the Behringer one, and this is the one that I'm going to buy because it sounds the best and it's the cheapest. That's fine. But just why are people hiding that stuff? A lot of times they're hiding. Sometimes they say it in the videos like for a clone, but for a lot of pedals they don't really know. A lot of the YouTubers that are doing that. So let's move on a little bit. So Christian asked me a question. I have a question. I just designed my first 2 circuits and I'm scared it'll sound like shit and I end up blowing NOS J201s. I don't know how you blew them up, but obviously, you can make mistakes and sometimes, JFETs can fail. But I would suggest when you're doing something like this, always work with 9 volts, because the only time I would blow anything up would be when I would use like higher voltages, like 18 volts for my designs. And sometimes it happens that when you're using a breadboard and that kind of stuff, something gets connected and it can fail. So Zvonimir Ružić, pozdrav, brate moj. Some friends are checking in. So let's see, what else do we have? In my opinion, what's the important part of gear? That's very, very hard to say. In what way? If you would ask me what part of the sound or what part of the chain you're specific about, then I can tell you. But, in terms of sound or in terms of, I think the most important part of gear is whatever gear you have and whatever makes you happy, honestly, because you can get a lot of great sounds with very, very little. So, rant mode. Name me a guitar pedal amp trend that makes you ick. Oh yeah, I'd have to think about that. Guitar pedal amp trend. Well, I just said one. And that's like people not knowing what they're reviewing. Yeah, that's kind of... Wow. Sorry, guys, I'm reading the comments now. Making circuits, it's like cooking. You could get protection for a specific recipe. If the cloner changes just one component, protection gone. That's how it works with commercial concrete mixes. Well, yeah, I mean... in a way, as I said in the beginning of my little talk about that, is there needs to be a legal entity where people who are qualified to talk about, to actually analyze these things and say these things, they would make a decision on that. In all honesty, I never gave it a lot of thought. So whatever I said in this particular video, I can't really say. I don't fully know. I'm not fully sure about these things. Where somebody who has more experience and more knowledge about that, how it's done in other industries, like you mentioned, then you would be like, okay, this is the rule, and now we are supposed to follow the rule, and I think that would be absolutely fine. But I think it's a lot of that's the same thing. Like if you were ever watching those Rick Beato videos where he would there was a point when he actually went to testify in some court or in front of Congress, I have no idea, but about like artists' rights, that's a big deal. That's a huge deal. And the fact that, Led Zeppelin, whatever, Stairway to Heaven, it's a stolen song. Yeah, but you don't own those 4 chords, How stolen is it? So you took the intro, you know what I mean? So there are things about somebody needs to make the rules. And then if we talk about the music in the last 25 years, you don't even need to steal a song. Everything's the same. So nobody should get paid and they should all disappear, and let's get back to the bands from the 90s, at least. Christopher, no problem. So what do I think about directional instrument and speaker cables like Vovox? Okay, so Stepan, this is a rather controversial topic that I would love to delve into, and I'll be very short about it. So here is the thing. What happens on YouTube and when you watch a lot of these videos, and it's so fun when you get into these audiophile circles because those people are fucking nuts. I think that's the only group that's crazier than the guitar player group, But what happens is that there are certain channels who are all about, $5,000 cables. And then you've got the channels who are like, that's all bullshit. Just use any cable. Copper is copper, and that kind of thing. Well, I like to be somewhere in the middle because we don't all need to be super woke about this whole thing, And we also don't necessarily need to be like some kind of radical, radical about whatever. You know what I mean? So if you think about it realistically, if we can talk about, so let's talk about science first. So scientifically, as far as I know, by the way, I'm not an expert in copper because I always need to make this kind of disclosure that I am not an expert in how copper is made. But what I know on a chemical basis, there are different ways how you can create metals, and depending on the temperatures, heating, and the time of the cooling, and the way how the whole metal is made, and those cables how they are manufactured, what happens is that you can have a different crystalline. Is it a crystalline? Structure inside. I'm sorry, but this is like out of the scope of my English since I'm not a chemist. So I guess the crystalline structure inside, and what can happen is that on a scientific level, there can be a difference in conduction depending on the side to are the electrons flowing from point A to point B or from point B to point A. That is a fact. On the other hand, we are posing the question of, do you need that? You know what I mean? Like, do you really need that? Is it important? Where I just said that these cables, actually JPTRFX just wrote, Vovox cables are good because the material is good. They're shielded good. You spend the money once. You will hear the difference when you use a €4 cable before, since the thin wires reduce lows and dynamics. So I would absolutely agree with JPTR. The only question is, how expensive are they? I would just ask that question. Honestly, how expensive are they? Because if they're unreasonably expensive, then I'd be like, I don't know, I'm fine with a Klotz one or a Summer one. You know what I mean? So just be realistic about what you need, because a lot of the times I would get asked by musicians here locally, hey man, like I saw these really expensive cables and whatnot, like should I buy them? And I'm thinking like, man, you've got like a 250 euro Hughes and Kettner, which sounds like ass. You've got an improvised cabinet, which sounds like ass. And now you want to buy a 150 euro cable. All right? So if you use your brain, that doesn't make sense. It is unreasonable. However, if you have some kind of ridiculous studio setup, and if you really think that kind of cable would do some kind of, 0.1, percent of something to it, sure, go ahead and buy it, but it doesn't make sense until you've checked out some of the things before, if you know what I mean. So that is my take on that. But I'm absolutely sure those cables are okay and fine. And as JPTR filled in, it's ridiculously great, because if you have a good quality cable, if the shielding is good, if they're rugged, you know what I mean? If they're not too stiff, like the cloth ones are. Like cloth one, it's a little bit too stiff, but they're good and they do sound good. And this stuff is measurable, even with like not so expensive equipment. Christian, thank you. My English is fine. I'm nailing it. Thank you very much. So the first live. By the way, we need to figure out the name for these lives. Everything is about marketing today. Hey, by the way, did you like my thumbnail with an AK-47? It's just a Russian issue. I was searching for, I asked AI to make me a Yugoslav reissue. Not reissue, that's the guitar tag, like Yugoslav issue AK-47, which is different, but I'm okay with the Russian. Take a look at that picture. That's ridiculous. All guns blazing. Maybe that should be the name of the podcast. Papeleria San Ignacio. How does the TransTube PV Bandit works? Well, I don't know about the TransTube PV Bandit, but realistically, I only remember the PV Bandit like the old one. I don't know if that is the TransTube. It's just standard solid state amp that's voiced well. I think the problem with a lot of transistor amps are not voiced well. Slightly live recorded, there you go. A lot of transistor amps can sound great, but they're not really well voiced. That's my opinion, Sometimes when you do like very simple mods to them and revoice them, you would be surprised how well they can work, So, David or David, I've just got a Marshall 9100 rack power amp. Do you know about these amps? Yes, I repaired them. Are they reliable? It has balance adjustment on HT preamp tubes. Not a typical Marshall power amp. That power amp kicks ass. How good are they? How reliable? Well, I think that question can be answered just by the fact that you still have them today and a lot of them still work really well. So that can tell you something about the reliability of them. That, I guess, that would be a good answer. Marshall stuff has never been ultra high quality, pardon me. Okay? Not even when they made those plexis. So that stuff was never high quality. Realistically, if we are going to be super realistic about this and like non-biased, honest about it, really the DSLs are of equal quality compared to the older amplifiers. Like Marshall was never building like high quality stuff. That's the reality. But that rack power amp, I think it's absolutely fine. So I don't think, I think you'll be very happy with it. It's a great sound. So yeah, slightly lethal. So, let's see. Slightly. Technically live. Yeah, that's good. Since this is a marketing topic, what do you think about the new Sun relaunch? Actually, I'd have to look it up before I do any kind of comment. I have no idea who is relaunching this. I only know the old Sun amps. That's the only thing that I know. So, by the way, for the people who don't know what we are talking about, particularly here, so Sun amps, Sun is an amplifier brand that existed back in the day, and some of these old amps went into legend, and now we have a Sun relaunch. I don't know. What are they gonna do? Are they gonna make it well? Or are we just gonna have another, Marshall take on stuff? Because, maybe they should just sell the schematic for $10 online so we can make it DIY even better. So I'll take a look at that. We can talk about it. As a guitar player, what would be your choice for small independent alt-rock trio touring in Europe? Head plus 2x12 combo amp. You'd love to hear my thoughts. You know what? If I was touring I would just make stuff easier on me, and I would try to make a great sound with whatever I had. If you're going with modelers, then you definitely need some kind of monitoring, because you really have to pay attention so you do not depend on the monitoring in that particular venue, because a lot of times, that's shit. If you go with an amplifier, I always suggest head plus a separate cabinet, because you don't always need to take the cabinet. There's also some benefits like, tube rattle and that kind of stuff. It's not that important, but I always like the option that I can change, and it's also easier to carry. When you have a head and a cabinet separately, you can take it in two hands, but if you have a big combo amp, they're really hard on your back. So it really depends on what you can carry, what's your budget. And when you're touring, I see a lot of people touring with modelers nowadays, because that's the reality. That's the reality of the whole situation. We don't have the possibility to take tube amplifiers anymore. That really became a luxury thing, unfortunately. Very, very unfortunately. Space Wolf. So, there's some technical questions over here. Are schematics available on the Sun amps? Oh, let me take a look in my little stash. Let's take a look at that, but I'm not... Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. We've got some stuff. I just have to go and check which models and how accurate some of these schematics are, but yeah, stuff is available. Regarding solid-state power stages, why do Class B units are perceived as louder than Class D despite an equivalent amount of watts? Well, tell you what, comparing a Class B device and a Class D device, these are two very different things. I don't know why they are perceived, but possibly. So Class B amplifiers are designed for PA systems, and they are generally not very nice sounding because they introduce something called was it in English, crossover distortion, or I actually forgot about that, but it's a push-pull amplifier, and it has some kind of distortion. Not really good quality, but you can get a lot of power from those designs. And when it comes to Class D amplifiers are something completely different, so I don't really know. There is a measurement of power which is supposed to work, but most of these people who write these manuals, and for various reasons, they don't give this information out in a standardized way. By the way, I do have a question for you. Do you see the stream well? Is the audio good? I would love your feedback, just so I know what I should fix for the next stream, in addition to these comment things. So, and thank you for that. That's the thing. I can carry FR monitor. I could easily carry some DSL Vox AC30. Oh, Vox AC30 is quite heavy. Take a look at the Vox behind me. It is ridiculously, it's really, really heavy. Intermodulation, distortion, that's what I was searching for. Yeah, correct. So, stream's looking super sharp. Audio is perfect. Thank you. Oh, great. Listen, for the mic is already compressed. I just didn't. Here's the thing. I'm waiting for my mic to come. This is a microphone from my friend. That whole compression thing is. I was thinking about it because I can make the microphone sound like I'm on a radio station. If you ever listen to, what was that? Howard. What was his name? Like, that is the typical, like radio station vibe. But on podcasts, they don't compress mics that much. So I have to rewatch. This is a test. So I will rewatch and then I will decide. But I'm supposed to get an SN7B because I just wanted it to be standardized, like with other podcasts, in terms of the color of the sound, just the style, nothing else. This mic works well, but I think the SN7B is going to be better. So tuning in from New Zealand, crazy. Or Howard Stern. Yes, I had Howard Shore, who is the Howard Shore that wrote the music for Lord of the Rings. But great. I love that you guys are loving this, and the fact that there are viewers on the stream is absolutely crazy. So we're gonna be doing this. We're gonna be doing a lot of these. That is the plan for the future. I want to put out videos of better quality. That this also helps me out, honestly, for recording the videos where I can, I'm getting better at recording videos because, to be perfectly honest, there are two things that bug me when I record the videos. First, I had some technical issues. Those were resolved. After that, you see, when you have to create a video, and if I am not fully focused and rested, you make a lot of mistakes. And I'm trying to convey some topics in a language which is not my native one. And I'm not using that as an excuse because I speak English. I think I started reading and writing English first and then Serbian. So I don't really have an issue with that, but sometimes it is a problem. If I'm rested, it's great. If I'm not rested, then sometimes it's hard because English is so phonetically different from my language. You'd be fucking surprised if you heard Serbian. It is so different. And let me tell you a story. So when I went to GitCon in 2017, was absolutely crazy. And I'll tell you, I have to tell you the entire story because it's beyond ridiculous. All right. So I finished my university, made my first website, like a CV thing, and then I saw Henning's video. He posted a video of searching for some helpers for the GitCon thing, and I applied, and they invited me, and I was supposed to go. But by the way, I had zero money, all right? We're doing some ridiculous jobs and, obviously servicing and playing around as a musician. And what happened was that, I didn't have a lot of money. So I kind of had to sell some of my pedals. Actually, that was the first time I sold all the pedals that I built, like my entire collection. I gathered up some money to go to that fucking GitCon, all right? It was a big deal. It was a big deal for me. Like, come on, I'm going to go and I'm going to see all these YouTubers. And there was like a lot of them, and I'm going to have fun. I'm going to go to Germany for the first time. It was super, super interesting. But the thing is that we had to be there at a particular day. So I wanted to start. So I have to drive from Serbia to Germany to this place in Saxony, which is 1,000 kilometers. So it's 12 hours of driving, you know? And I figured out I'm gonna start, like 6 p.m. I'm gonna be there 6 a.m. because I didn't know that we actually had a fucking hotel booked, all right, for the night before. Because, for a Serbian kid, that stuff is not normal that somebody pays the hotel for you, all right? So I wake up that morning and I sent Henning a message. And I think I sent him a message and just like, I was shy, but I asked if, maybe we have a hotel booked for that particular night. He was like, fuck yeah, you have a hotel book. You have to come here the day before. So I jump into the car, right? And I started heading off to Germany. Came late, sometime 2 in the morning. And I'm coming down for the breakfast for the first time. I'm supposed to meet all the other helpers and that kind of stuff. And I used to speak English very frequently when I was a kid. But there was a point in my life where I didn't use English. I just used it in chat when I was playing World of Warcraft, all right? So I would use English, but I didn't speak. And I had a perfect pronunciation when I was a kid. And I came in, so I went there to get gone, and of course, I know English. Yeah, it's not a problem. My God. I came there that morning. When I opened my mouth, I realized something was wrong. Something was fucking wrong, all right? I couldn't say anything because it was so ridiculous. Because in my language, you got like sounds like j, r, sh, ch, j. It's ridiculous, right? And, you have to speak in English. It was so funny for me, and I was struggling to pronounce things. And eventually, obviously, it took me about a year to get my accent back to where it is approximately now. And I understand that my accent is far from perfect, but you know what I mean. It's quite different, So, will I come to Guitar Summit? Well, Guitar Summit is in, when is it in? November, October, or September? Maybe. I don't know. Maybe. Last year, I had a friend of mine from Iliani Guitars. He was at Guitar Summit. That's what I remember. Christian, see you, man. Thank you. Tungsten Am, glad to see your channel still growing. You know what you're talking about. I like to think so. Thank you very much. Space Wolf, all over the world. That's where we all are existing. Let's explore the international, intergalactic, universal languages again. Yeah, fuck yeah. That's absolutely true. Yeah, so there you go, guys. That was actually a Guitar Summit, September 26th. I don't know. I haven't planned. Let's see how stuff goes. Maybe I even visit. Honestly, I never intended to be a content creator, which is going to do these gear reviews. I don't want to do gear reviews. I'm not interested in a thing like that. But when you talk about gear in a weird way, you're doing some kind of a review, right? So I never we're gonna organize that, JPTR. So what I wanted to say is that I don't know. I don't even know what I'm doing with this channel. I mean, I know what I'm doing with the Academy, but I don't know what I'm doing with the channel because some of these videos that I made, like a little bit controversial and that kind of stuff, provoking some people, which was stupid. I mean, the whole situation was ridiculous. But I may even ask some of those people to come on my channel and maybe do a live like this, because I kind of feel that's what this world misses, more of these conversations. So I have no idea what I'm doing and where the channel is actually going. I want to make the right decisions and make interesting content that I really try to be different. So I offer something to the people who are watching this that just watch something different. You know what I mean? Just don't, let's not watch the same old thing. Let's try and change something. So that's what I actually want to offer. Sometimes it's hard to get really good ideas. So I love, when people are giving me like great ideas. It's been a journey. I have no idea how it's going to end up, but I think this concept is going to be great. Let's build some pedals. Let's talk about circuits. Let's answer some questions in this live situation. I think that's, since I can't even believe it, but my application tells me that we are at 1 hour 56 fucking minutes. All right, that's ridiculous. I want to get some guests. I want to do collaborations with people where we do interesting things and educate people. I think that is the biggest thing, the biggest deal about this whole thing. Let's educate people. It's not about making a review or a demo of a TC electronic pedal. I would just like to do the education, and realistically we can obviously comment on some of the equipment, but so yeah. Pickup video, RG Electric got you into LT Spice. Well, so that's a great point there, because on the Slightly Technical Academy, as some of you already know, I'm starting with this huge educational campaign. We can call it like that. Maybe it's ridiculous, but on the Slightly Technical Academy, I've got my first course coming out in a couple of weeks. I'm just finishing it, refining it, and I'm going to upload it in its full glory. And it's the course on the Big Muff Pi pedal, but it's not a course on the Big Muff Pi pedal. It's a course in audio electronics. It's a course in which I'm explaining absolutely everything that I know, absolutely everything that, correcting all of the mistakes that I made during my time when I started building amplifiers and pedals, and teaching electronics through some familiar circuits. So it's not only about the Big Muff Pi. Yeah, for sure, there's absolutely everything for beginners, but it's going to be ridiculously long because there are electronics basics, then there's like in-depth circuit analysis, and then there's like prototyping phase, and then there's the building phase and everything in detail. Like for someone who never built a pedal, he can, go use the course and build a bunch of Big Muffs. But the highlight is of teaching people how to mod stuff, to understand why stuff is happening and make something unique. That is what I think, that's my philosophy. That's just my philosophy. I think that people should know that. It's super fun. It's a ridiculously good hobby. And it's also going to, through that knowledge, people will actually understand sound better. And, after that, you can build pretty much any DIY pedal, not only the Big Muff, but I'm going to be following up with other in-depth analysis of other pedals, and a lot of things are coming on the website. I don't want to bore you about that, but the LT Spice thing, I'm doing everything in LT Spice, and I do like introductory lessons into LT Spice, into the DIY layout creator. I'm mentioning KiCad. I'm showing you some calculators and some other software which is free. So I'm basically making a course where I'm utilizing all the modern everything that's available to us, and we're not doing mathematical stuff. And it's fun. It's fun stuff. So I completely recommend that you go visit and check that out if you're interested in such a thing. But I truly think that is what this channel should be about. That's education. When you pick up some smart things from this live, from whatever we are talking about here on my videos, it's going to make you richer. It's going to make you eventually a better musician. That's what I believe. Because realistically, come on, all these great guitar players, they're not dummies. They know their shit. Maybe they don't know how to wind transformers, design them, but they can solder around in their guitar. They know how different capacitors work. You know what I mean? They are not dummies. So, yeah. Let me just read a few of those comments. Leola Costa, I love your approach to stuff like modelers, tube amps. Thank you. I bought the TC Rat clone, Magus, I think, and I love the sound. Hated the switch. Well, yeah, sometimes that happens. What is a Serbian crypt ID or cryptid? Did I, I'm not getting that. Somebody please explain that before I leave. So, yeah, I think we had a great session. I'm super surprised. I'm actually shocked because we've got 30 people on. We had a lot of people joining in from the beginning, and I thought I would be doing this alone for my first podcast, and I was already embarrassed, and I didn't even know what to do. I didn't even want to do it, but yesterday I figured out, fuck that, I'm gonna do it. So I scheduled it. So, oh, Adam, recommendations from visiting Serbia for a vacation one day. Well, you are absolutely invited. There are many recommendations. Actually, we can do it in the chat depending on what you want. But Serbia is great. Like Serbia doesn't have access to sea, but when it comes to like rivers, mountains, canyons, that kind of stuff, hiking, we've got a lot of these like thermal water places, stuff like that. Oh yeah, so many places to visit. Really, really a lot. And if you don't want Serbia, like I totally advise coming to the Balkans in general. It's ridiculous. So you can text me about that if you want some recommendations. Are there a lot of people who build guitar amps in Serbia? Well, not really, but not really. We had the old guys. The old guys were good, but then they died out. So, in the words of MJ, you are not alone. Thank you. Sadly, you just got here at the end of the stream. Yeah, but you can rewatch it. That's yes. I have to figure out the time and date, and I sort of try to decide on something that's going to fit a lot of people, also the American public and the European public. But I've got people from all around the world, so I will try it and figure it out and put it out on some days when people can actually join in. This Sunday seems fine. So let's see. Maybe we do it also multiple times. I don't know yet. As I said, I want to do the podcast, so there's going to be a lot of that. So, David, you say you have a lot of in Hungary. Yeah, I don't know. I really don't know. So, okay, Space Wolf. It's a legendary entity such as Bigfoot, Chupacabra, werewolves, giants. All right. Plus more, I can elaborate, and we're going to continue that in the in the messages. But cryptid, yeah, I'd have to. I'd actually have to remember that. I'm going to Google it out. Oh, for sure, Adam, you're gonna call me because I'm just like very close to Belgrade, second largest city. So, and it's not a big country, so great, absolutely great. Could I recommend an affordable 50-watt tube amp? Again, Altrock Trio Magella. Oh, really depends. It's a long answer as I'm ending the stream now, but let me try and leave you with the best answer that I can possibly give you. Don't buy a Marshall. There you go. That's the best answer that I could give you. Don't buy a Marshall. No, but realistically, really depends on what kind of style you're playing, and look into some of the smaller brands. You will find that a lot of these companies make ridiculously good stuff, much better quality than you would find from the big brands, and it's cheaper. So I'd look at that. Yourself and John need to do a podcast with a guy from the Y-Files. Oh, we're going to talk about Mesa in the next one, Adam. All right. Gotta end because I have to go. I thank you all for watching. You guys are legendary. I love you all. You really helped me out with this first one. So I'll be seeing you in the next stream. And yeah, stay safe, stay well. And I didn't figure out what to say in the end. But there we go. Thank you guys. See you.